using with the use of working agreements with Ayanda Shabalala. Ayanda Shabalala is a Scrum Master. She has been a Scrum Master for a while now. She works with one of the top financial services provider in the country. She has honed this craft for some time now, and we are lucky to actually to have her time and also her presenting to us one of the key things as a business analyst, one of the key things that you learn as a business analyst, especially when you are a senior business analyst. This is a huge thing that you should actually, a skill that you need to learn, or a technique that you use to increase your stakeholder management. As Ayanda will go deeper into this topic. You can go to the next slide, Ayanda, please, for me. Okay, just to take care of the house rules, we will leave time for questions when we open the questions. In this case, we will actually open the questions right at the end. Once we declare that we are now no longer taking questions, we will then forward your questions that you have posted to our panelists such that they are able to answer those questions later on after the session. And the recording will be uploaded on the IIBA SA YouTube page. Unfortunately, we did not send out the slide decks, nor do we send out the video itself. You can actually go visit the IIBA's YouTube channel. And most importantly, I always urge anyone who's here who's not a member of the IIBA to become a member by visiting www.iiba.org.business. This is where you can register to be a member. And if you'd like to present tools and technique to the community, you can always just follow the link, reach one of us, and also just send an email to capetown@iiba.org. And also for the next events, you will be able to get by visiting the IIB page. That is my.iiba.org/portal/events, or follow the IIBA's LinkedIn page on LinkedIn. Otherwise, you can always email us at capetown at capetown@southafrica.iiba.org. Next slide, Ayanda, please. To add off to access access to member exclusive webinars, you can always go to IIBA and become a member there as well. There is quite a huge library of more than 11,000 titles that you can access in our library. They can access also PDF publications, articles, industry papers, as well as reports. Also opportunities to connect with other members at your local or international conferences and chapters, exclusive access to global communities and BA educators and thought leaders. That's what you get. Also, you save. This is quite an amount that you save, especially for those who want to do the ECBA or CBAB. You save up to 40% in globally recognized professional certificates, discounts at conferences as well. I'd like to urge the aspiring business analyst, any other business analyst that always wants, that wants to feel part of a community, to volunteer as well, just by sending us an email at that capetown at southafrica.iiba.org. Thank you very much. I will now hand over to the amazing Ayanda. Thank you very much, Ayanda, and I hope everyone enjoys the session today. Thank you. Over to you, Ayanda.
Awesome. All right. Welcome, everybody. I just want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak to the community. Before I continue, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I'd like to just thank everybody for joining the call. Taking time away of your day at 7 p.m. in the evening is quite a lot, and it is towards the end of the year. I'm pretty sure that a lot of us on the call are really feeling a lot of fatigue, but I really do appreciate you guys taking the time off to come here a little bit about working agreements. I'm also sure that you guys have had the you guys have had the opportunity to go through working agreements. I'm sure you've researched the topic when you saw it on LinkedIn or however it was shared to you. And some of you guys have developed working agreements in the team, or I know that there's probably a couple of Scrum Masters, product owners, not just BAs on the call that have worked with working agreements. So it is going to be a very valuable topic today to share. And I'd also like to get some feedback from you at the end of the session around the topic and what are those little nuggets or successes that you think the session today has catered for. All right, cool. So I'd like to share a little bit of my expectations of the session with you guys. So I want you guys to be able to listen beyond your assumptions. I want you to remove the conscious and unconscious biases that you set for yourselves individually or as a team. And what I have based this discussion point on is agile delivery teams. Now, of course, working agreements do and can work for multiple teams that get formed, whether you are a team that gets formed around a waterfall project or you play a specific function. Where there is a collaboration or where there is a common goal, you definitely can apply working agreements in that space. But I want to take a moment now and actually speak around what are your expectations in this chat today. I've asked really to populate some of those expectations on the chat box. So you guys can populate some of those expectations on the chat box. You can unmute yourself, or you can share that with me now. I'm going to give you guys a moment to share so that we can see if this conversation will actually cater for that. If it doesn't, we definitely can put it on the parking lot, and I'm really open to discussions. At the end of the session, I will share my details so that you can come to me with questions if it hasn't been answered here, or you can come to the IIBA, this forum as well if you are members. I'm happy to answer and remove any questions or ambiguities that you might have around working agreements and anything else, I suppose, around the agile way of working. Cool. So, Ellie, anything on the chats there about people's expectations for the session?
Not yet, Ayanda. I'll definitely tell you as soon as there's something that pops up.
Okay, great. So I'm going to move on and ask you guys to think a little bit about a moment in your time where, majority of you guys here are maybe BAs or you guys do some sort of collecting of requirements. And there's a moment where you've had to repeat the same requirements to your team on what the business wants. Or some of you guys have had maybe a team member run off and cry in a little corner because they just couldn't understand why you were speaking to them in the way that you have. And you might not have meant it in that way. You might have just been communicating in a style that they don't particularly understand. How many of you have had repeated breakdowns of stories where you're doing a story mapping exercise and you're vertically slicing and you're doing all sorts of trying to disseminate information to your team, but your team is just not getting it? I'm sure a lot of you guys have shared those moments. And lastly, how many of you guys have had misleading expectations with your business stakeholders, sponsors, your team members, and have had communication breakdowns and conflicts, and you just don't know how to resolve it, or there's some expectations that have been set where you just don't know how to meet them? Well, these are frequent pain points that we experience in teams, and the concept of a working agreement helps us understand how we can drive resolving those. Excuse me. So, a working agreement is essentially a social agreement, a social contract that is a mutual promise between people in a team. Now, I was looking around and I was thinking about, well, do we understand the word or the idea of a team in the same way? And I thought about aligning what I believe or what is a standard around what a team is. And a team is a group of people who perform interdependent tasks to work towards accomplishing a common mission or a specific objective. And with that understanding of a team, it then resonates with what this working agreement should do. It should drive teams or people in a team towards a common goal. I read a scholarly article as well recently that called team agreements as a team expectation agreement. I love the word expectations because that sets some kind of precedence about what is needed of me in the team and what promise do I bring to the team. It's an artifact to mitigate disappointment, consequence management, conflict management. It's a way to eradicate unconscious expectations. What we need to do is we need to use collective intelligence for the benefit of the team's success. When we understand the common goal, the boundaries of control, social expectations, we are able to freely explore and co create. Now, working agreements are not employment contracts. This happens a lot in teams where we bring out the working agreements to see how a person is actually supposed to be performing. That's not what a working agreement is about. It's not a document that lives on Confluence or any other document repository that you guys use in your spaces that we never revisit again. It's a living document. It's not imposed by management, nor is it imposed by any team lead. It's not imposed by a scrum master, no BAs, no POs, no leadership. It's all about the team and that collaborative team effort. And it's definitely not a product vision document. In a working agreement, we speak to behavior and shared responsibility. Now, I want to take a little bit of a moment to speak about the idea of team maturity and the idea of how working agreements promote or can be used to get a team to cohesiveness. We know that, I don't know if you guys have heard of a gentleman called Bruce Tuckman, who developed a model that speaks to the development of teams. There is 4 stages that go through the effectiveness of teams and how they perform. The first stage of a team's maturity is where they form. Now, this can happen, for example, where a team is formed for the first time. You guys are all new, you're put together, and you are expected to work together. Some might be excited, and some might actually feel a little bit conflicted. Some might be scared. There actually isn't consensus on how we need to do things, but we are forming. Then that team moves over to storming. All right, now we know that we need to work together. It may be difficult, but it is very important. It deals with individual personalities, and that's where we actually merge. This is the stage that begins to occur as the process of organizing ourselves and trying to get to a place where we are cohesive. As we move over from the storming stage, we move to norming. In the norming stage, we see where the conflict is resolved, we have some sort of consensus, and in this stage, team members are actually creating a way of work. This is where we develop some kind of norms and practices and principles, some kind of operating model, how are we going to show up. This is a best place for the team to actually develop a cadence. And then the last stage, which is performing. This is where the team has reached consensus, is well established, and is cooperating. This is true interdependence, and when we can actually call a team a team. This is where you see working agreements actually becoming living norms. At some point in a team's life, we might find ourselves going back from performing to forming or back from performing to storming because things change, teams change, people change. But at the end of the day, the one thing that needs to remain is the fact that we are together for one common goal. All right, so I'm going to take a moment now, and this is where I'm going to spend most of my time to speak about how working agreements look. How do we facilitate this idea or the session? Do we sit in a session? Does it happen over time? How do we develop this thing called a working agreement? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you guys through a actual working agreement template. There's a really cool tool that probably is used across organizations. There's multiple tools, actually, in fact, that you guys can use that can be used across organizations. I know some of the banks and some of the excuse me, the insurance houses have locked down systems where you can't really access things and you struggle with this and that. But not to worry, because we are moving into a place where there's one adopted tool. So, for example, if you guys are using Atlassian systems, you can go onto Confluence, and there is actually a template for a working agreement that exists on Confluence. But if you're really restricted in that level, we can always share this template. I can always share it with the community. And you guys can use that baseline or the themes to create it on a Word document, on a poster that's writable, on a physical board that sits in the office, however you'd like to use it. And also, I am also aware that there's probably team members in here that have developed working agreements before and that have been working with working agreements. You can use this opportunity to take away some nuggets where you can improve on your current working agreements, or you can ask me questions around, if you're not in a software development environment, how can you apply it in your environment? Maybe you want to apply it in your own life. You can definitely do that, and I'll take you through what the template looks like. So firstly, how do we facilitate a working agreement session? So commonly, there are two styles or facilitating frameworks that we use to kind of get teams to draw up ideas on what needs to go on their working agreement. The first one is the diverge and converge activity, which I'll speak to in much detail. And then the one that actually poses a lot more problems, or for teams that are a little bit mature that are trying to refine maybe their working agreement, is the worst possible idea activity. But for now, for today, I'm going to deal with the divergent converge activity. I'm going to take you through the divergent converge activity, walking you through an on-site facilitation, on-site facilitation exercise. You can obviously do this virtually. You can also do it on site. I've provided some guidelines as well on how to do it virtually and on site, but today I'll just speak to the on site version. So divergence and convergence speaks to how we allow teams to generate ideas, think about their ideas. We come back and we make decisions on those ideas, and we actually choose what best resonates with what our team looks like. So in the first step of this exercise of facilitation, you individually generate ideas and suggestions. So as you know, everyone in a team is an individual, and we all have creative ideas and we all have our thought processes on how things work. At this stage, we don't necessarily might not have a common goal, but we have an idea of what certain themes speak to. Now, as I go through the template, I want you guys to stick to these 4 processes so that we can actually see how it actually plays out in a facilitated process. So we generate these ideas and everybody brings them to the table in a facilitated room. You give everybody a sticky, a pen, you give everybody a piece of paper, you can stick it on the wall, you can actually have a massive canvas on the wall, have everybody write down their ideas under specific themes. Then from there, we move to the review and understand stage. At this point, if you are doing it physically, I love to do a gallery walk. If you, well, all of you guys are from Cape Town, maybe, I don't know, there's some people that are not from around here, but in Cape Town, we have times where we call them First Thursdays, where you get an opportunity to go to various various art galleries and actually take a walk through and have a look at like the different types of arts and how people paint them, and it actually helps you process different things. A lot of people look at things and they think of it differently, and that's actually what this exercise is about. So in this gallery walking exercise, you get to look at people's ideas on themes because people don't think the same way. And as you're walking through this exercise, we can then do the third part of the process, which is deciding on items that will go on your working agreement. Now, the decision making is where we build consensus, and it is a very important part of this process. I have taken away some literature from the Liberating Structures. There's 5 ways to build consensus, and I will share a lot of detail on that as well with the facilitators, so that they can give you information on that. But the one way of building consensus that I really like to use is dot voting. So we give everybody a dot or a sticky dot. And as they do this gallery walk and as they are thinking about everything that everybody's written, they put a dot or a sticky or a dot on the sticky or on the idea that resonates with them most. Then at the end of this gallery session, we collect all of this data and we have a look at the stuff that actually had the most votes on it. And those become the basis of what we set up our working agreement on. When we move from this phase of deciding, we then populate our team working agreement. All right, so at this point, I'm going to move from my slides and I'm going to go on to the actual working agreement itself so that we can see what actually does that look like. Can you guys see my screen, Sully?
Yeah, we can see the screen, Ayanda. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Okay, so the use of tools like Miro, Mural, Atlassian give you an opportunity to actually have a facilitation guideline, right? There's nothing stopping you from taking this and replicating it onto a physical board if you're doing a physical walkthrough of actually developing this working agreement. The nice thing about Mural itself is there's a little cheat sheet that tells you exactly what steps, how long you should take it, how long you should take in actually developing each part of the steps. And I'm going to speak to each one of these themes. And what I would like to do is also give you guys an opportunity to ask me any questions of these themes. If there is something that you're not clear on, you can hold a question, and then at the end of the session, you are more than welcome to ask me anything about the themes that are on the canvas. All right, so the first thing is we want to draft out ideas. So team name. Now, a lot of you guys here on this call are probably not interested about generating funny team names or fun team names. You actually don't feel like it's a waste of my time. Why should I do that? That is not important. That is childish. It's actually very tree huggy. But actually, it does really help with driving the working agreement ownership and with driving the fact that you guys are creating this thing on your own. So, for example, if you guys want to call yourself Team Avengers, this is not to say you are naming the product or the project Team Avengers. Your team is Team Avengers because you believe in step number 2, a team motto. You believe that your team is the best solutioning team or the best whatever team, however you are formed. And that's where you put down your motto. So your team name and your team motto become who you are. They are your personalities. In the third step is your team mission. So why does this team exist? How do we align? What does the business want to see? Like what do they want to achieve? What do we do? How do we do it? Why do we do it? Like I said, this is the place where individuals are putting down their ideas, and everybody will go there and put down what they believe that this team mission is or what this team is about. It is actually very interesting when you do the gallery walk and see the multiple variations of what actually people think the team is. And once you do the dot voting, it brings you closer and closer to what the team vision or what the team goal is. And it brings together that relief of consensusness, because now you're getting closer to actually understanding what your team is about. The fourth one, which is probably important to most of you, for me, I don't really care, but it's really important to most people, is the roles and responsibilities. So what is your name? What do you do? What do you do formally and what don't you do formally? I mean, what were you hired for? But there's those really nice, what do you informally do? Where you actually can also pick up people's pain points or gaps that we have in the team, because people might be playing multiple roles. And that's the opportunity to put it down there. Then there's the metrics and KPIs. Now, this for me is very important because this puts down, what does success look like for you? How do we track it? How do you track success? What do you believe needs to be future tracked for success? And remember, at this point, we're still individually generating ideas. So, what success looks like for me might not necessarily be the same for Zweli. So, we document all of that information here. And then my most favorite one, which is the strengths and skills. So a lot of us have superpowers that you won't necessarily be hired for it, but you're actually so freaking awesome at it, and your team needs to know. So, for example, I am a Scrum Master and I am incredibly great at making videos. Put it down there. There might be an opportunity that the team needs something documented on a video for business. Anything that you can think of, put it down there as stuff that stick out, make you strong, make you stand out. The seventh part is the biggest pain point I think we experience, and especially and especially now that we have had a break in how we work during COVID. We are now hybrid teams. Now you're seeing that there's like a lot of gaps in the team. So document those gaps and our growth opportunities. What skills or qualities do we need more of? Where could we improve? And then what we don't talk about a lot is, how do we celebrate and how do we improve? We're so quick to do the work, but we actually don't take the time to actually celebrate a lot of the things that we do. So individually, how would you like to celebrate? What does celebration of success look like for you? You document it over there, put it on, and gathering the ideas. Values. So values speak to, what does the company believe is the strongest values that you guys, do you even know what the company values are? You put them down, note your Scrum values. If you are a Scrum team, note them. They exist. It's something that you can live against. What are the team values? What do you guys value the most? What is important to you? And then norms. So there's obviously some best practice that we want to make sure that everybody understands, or everybody's already practicing. We need to document it and make it visible that, well, this is best practice. This is what norm looks like. This is an expectation. Then lastly, the events and key dates. Now, this is exceptionally important in the sense that everybody needs to understand how and when we have moments of planning, moments of talking or breaking down, elaborating, moments of reviewing with our business or internally, moments of demoing to the rest of the organization. You put those things down here. If there's more ceremonies that you want to include or events that you want to include, there's nothing stopping you from documenting it on your working agreement. Remember, this is a team document. It's not just for yourself. Then I know that specifically for roles like BAs, systems analysts, product managers, product owners, I don't know what else exists out there, that is a custodian not only to the Agile team itself, but is also a custodian to business or external stakeholders. What I haven't included on this canvas, which I have included a link for, is the RACI and the DAISY chart. Now, nothing is stopping you from developing or including your RACI on your working agreement or your DAISY itself, if you are working in a decision-making metric, including it onto your metrics, so that it can help outline to the team when are the moments where you have these conversations with who, how do you decide on things upfront, how do you decide on them in the process of developing your software, whatever it is, the product that you're working on. And then lastly, so now we are now moving to the gallery walk. You've now voted on the individual ideas under all of these themes. And now we want to take it and put it somewhere where we actually can visualize it. On this working agreement canvas, you then take the most important things and have them written in a way that the team understands them. This is where you document them. You don't want to overpopulate or overcommit the team at first, but you want to put information there that will help you guys understand how this team works. So in each step of the process that you've populated it, you map it back to the canvas, and this becomes your poster. This becomes how you lift off a team. This becomes a conversation starter when you have conflict. This becomes a conversation when you plan, when you review. This becomes a conversation when you are contracting your business on how to have conversations externally from the team. This is a conversation starter where you can document your definition of ready, communicate that to your team. This is what our norms are regarding definition of ready. This is our norms are on our definitions of done. And you can actually use this document at the inception of your team, in the middle when you guys are developing software, and towards the end when you want to review how successful your team cohesion has been. I'm sure you guys have some questions, and if you don't, that's also okay. That means I've been great at explaining it. But if you do have questions, I'll open up the opportunity for you guys to ask a little bit later. So how does this help you? How does this help you to be a better person in your team? What does it mean to you? Can you guys still see my screen?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So how this helps you is
you can put it on presentation mode.
Can you see? Apologies.
Yeah, I can still see. I think you're at the beginning of this of it, yeah.
Can you see?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm not very technologically inclined as well, so it probably would have gone to the beginning. All right, so this is a basis for you to hold your team to their promise. Working agreements make it better for you guys to communicate, collaborate, and become a better custodian to your business and the Agile team. Working agreements help with conflict resolution. It helps with building trust. It enhances communications in teams, and it promotes accountability. And overall, it will definitely improve your work process. Now, of course, there are known limitations. And of course, like I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, that I'm speaking on a basis of agile teams. Not all teams are on the journey for agility, and we cannot force working agreements on all teams. Sometimes all teams need is a RACI metrics. Sometimes all teams need is an operating model. But at a point where there is much conflict and there is much pain points, it is important to review that maybe our problems are not analytical, or maybe our problems are not process driven. Maybe our problems are just social. Maybe we have empathetic problems. Maybe we have psychological safety issues. And that's where the working agreement comes to play. Working agreements are valuable, but they won't solve for all team issues. Sometimes they are real issues. They will help identify them, they will help bring them to surface, but they definitely won't solve everything. Some team issues are actually related to things that not you individually in the team can solve. And we shouldn't own that as a team. We should just own the things that we have control over. To succeed in team cohesiveness, or for a working agreement to succeed, a team needs to be a team. It actually needs to have a common goal that we're chasing. A working group is not a team. What I mean by working group is if you have an activity that you need to fulfill or a task that you need to fulfill, you don't need a working agreement. You are not forming part of a team that has a vision that needs to fulfill a greater purpose that is interdependent. If you can work solely on yourself and not dependent on anybody, then there's no need for a working agreement. You just need to contract whoever that you're working on your role of accountability, your responsibility, and all sorts of things that exist in the racing. It is important to note that if your team is still newly forming, or you are new as a Scrum Master, or you are new as a facilitator, do not rush into it. It's important to remember that the trust deficit still exists with the unknown, and team members are not just going to trust you up front. Firstly, they probably don't understand why you're there or why the last person left and you're the new person coming in. So the trust deficit or the trust still needs to be built. And it's okay to wait. It's okay to wait to get into a room to establish a working agreement. And if something is really working, and if there's an existing working agreement, there's no need to go and make a new one. You can definitely update the version that exists. It's a living document. It is meant to go through variations and changes so as to teams. So to conclude, I'm going to say that working agreements are valuable. The goal is team cohesiveness. Team cohesiveness promotes team alignment. Transparency is key and it drives accountability. Working agreements promote psychological safety and it does that through visibility. These are social agreements. These are not contracts. These are not things to baseline people's competencies on. This is for the team. It builds team confidence and it builds team trust. It is important to set the scaffolding up front with both your customers and the rest of your teams on working agreements. And this sets the working agreement sets the precedence for that. So as a team, you can review the working agreement at every increment of delivery, which promotes continuous improvement. All right, so if you want to, well, not if you want to, I have obviously got a lot of templates that I can share, and I've got a lot more information that I can share on how to use working agreements in a strategic position. If you are working not inside a team, but you're working maybe one level higher in a management role, but you would like to actually use the concepts of a working agreement to actually formulate how you strategically think about teams, we can definitely position that. I can share some information and insights. This is not enough time for us to do that, but this is a start. Cool. Thank you, Zweli.
Thank you very much, Ayanda, and thank you very much to everyone who's decided to join us. It's an amazing topic. I can read some of the comments out. Zamo saying this is actually super informative. Bulelwa saying this is an amazing topic. She's glad to be part of this. Sinobom also just saying thank you thank you very much for this. He would actually would like to share this with his team. It's something that he would need. But also there are two questions. One that was asking, would we also include talent, or would we also include talent and other skills and responsibilities as part of the canvas itself that you showed us? Are those possible things that would need to we can include?
All right. So like I mentioned, say that you can expand a working agreement as a living document. against what you believe is important for your team to have. So, for example, the RACI, which is that roles, it's a roles matrix that actually speaks to the roles and the accountability. What talent do you have in your team? What does that look like? Like, what are the people that you have in your team? So you can actually expand it to that. And there is some really cool templates that I will share with you, Zweli, as well, on how you can expand and actually still bring it back to the working agreement and fit it into, like, for example, how do we show up, or your skills, or expectations, but you definitely can do so.
Thank you very much, Ayanda. I hope that answers that question. The next question is, what would you say is an example or examples of norms? And it's also part of that. What are the norms that you'd say, just give us an example, one or two.
All right. Do you want to take this from a BA best practice perspective, or I can take it as a general question?
Just take it as a general, it's okay for this
okay.
one. Yeah.
So, all right. So norms, for example, if you are a data engineering fraternity, or if you are, like you guys are, a BA fraternity, there's best practice that exists that, these are the expected, this is an actual expectation of your actual role. So what are those best practice procedures? Not about the role itself, not about you are accountable for this, you are accountable for that, but as a set of, for example, definition of ready. I need to make sure that as a BA, I have captured business rules on my business requirement as a definition of ready for us to start with development in the development team. That can be a norm that you can put down as something that actually exists, as something that's an expectation for us to start something in a team.
There is a hand. Thank you very much for that, Ayanda. There is a hand awesome. That was raised. I would just like to give an opportunity for that hand. I did see Tina, or unless I was wrong, just want to go to that name.
I'm still struggling with audio. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we
can. I can hear
you. Okay, awesome. I'm using my phone, so I can't even share my video. Struggling with navigating. Hopefully, well, Ayanda knows me. Awesome topic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing such a topic. It's quite an awesome one, quite a very important one. I will admit I have abused the idea or the value that's yielded by working agreements. And due to the seniority of the audience, I'll just share how I have abused the output basically from working agreements, especially for BAs. So essentially, Ayanda, you have advised that it's for agile teams. Essentially, if you just take a step back and look at value yielded, right, and when it is crucial to essentially have an agreement on how you're going to work and how you are planning to get there and unify basically your journey in terms of getting there, I would suggest that make it an everyday thing. Every time you start something new, every time you are on a project where you're starting from scratch, you haven't worked together, lots of assumptions, lots of space for conflict, especially when it comes to where are we headed, what are we doing, how often are we going to meet, what are the assumptions, what are the expectations. Take small pieces of it, small pieces of what the format that Ayanda has shared, and just customize that to how will we work together? How do we bring forth difficult conversations that we know and anticipate are going to happen in the future? Bring it forward and go, let's create a safe space that's going to set a platform for continuous improvement that's going to enable us to be able to hold each other accountable without falling into a trap of creating inefficiencies without setting a platform that says this is how we will do things.
Absolutely.
No, that's exactly. I would like to latch on what just Tina said. Just recently, I was just involved in a number of interviewing business analysts and also senior business analysts. And one of the questions that came out was, how do you deal with stakeholders? How do you deal with difficult stakeholders in general?
Mhm.
And I exactly found that, Tina, that for me, I was looking for someone who would say, I would actually just use a working agreement with the stakeholders from the onset, so that if any one of the stakeholders becomes difficult or wants to mess up whatever it is that we're trying to do here, we can always go back and say, hey, this is what we said we wanted out of this journey. This is the I like the new terminology as well, Aina, that you gave me. Team expectation agreement. I love that. I really love that. Yeah, but thank you very much, Tina, for that. Cool. I just wanted to add to also what you've been given, and again, when it comes to these difficult stakeholders, one of the most important things as a business analyst that you want to get out as quick as possible is to actually ensure that just use the four W's in this case, especially when you are setting up initially with your stakeholders. So when setting up this working agreement, such that, especially for big projects, you know exactly what it is that we hear. You know who's here and why they're here, what it is that they're doing here. They also know themselves what is expected of them. Using those four W's will definitely help you and will help accelerate the process of actually getting people together. But yeah, over to you, and I think there's quite a number of comments. Someone saying
wants to use it for their child. I saw that.
Someone saying, Bulelwa is saying they will use it on their kids. But this is an amazing topic. Thank you very much to Zamo as well. We are looking forward as well, Zamo, to our next one. And as I always say, this was an amazing one. We're definitely going to have many more like this, with Ayanda also coming back with other topics. Yeah. Thank you very much as well to Sandy. Are there other questions or other? I can see there's another hand. Let me allow Zamo to talk. Hey, Zamo.
Hi, Zili. Hi, Ayanda.
Hi.
Thank you so much for such a great topic. And I hear you guys are from the same career path. I'm actually in finance, and I found this quite informative because it's, you know, when something's at the back of your mind, but you don't even know there is a terminology for it. And now that I've heard with, okay, there's a terminology for it, I know it's something that I can even put it on the table with also my team at work. I might not be heading them, but also just to always be aligned and just have that agreement. Yeah, actually, that was quite informative. I'm glad I joined. Thank you so much, guys.
That's awesome, Zamo. Yeah, I know that this is not a Stephen Hawking laws of black holes science breaking down metamorphosing things and cells and blood cells and things like that, but it's actually an empathetic thing that we never tap into as teams. We just get there and we just want to show up as my role and don't realize that actually the psychological safety and the personal mastery and the actually bringing self, your personality comes into a team. That's where you spend most of your time. So why not contract with the people that you're going to work with on how you're going to show up? Sometimes Zamo doesn't want to actually speak to anyone on Fridays. Can we allow Zamo that opportunity? We've spoken about it. We know that when Zamo's like this, it's actually, this is what's happening in Zamo's space. And when Zamo's having a conflict with their boss, this is actually how they resolve it. And a working agreement and an expectation is a promise to the team to say that I promise that this is how I want to show up and this is how I am going to show up. These are my limitations of showing up the way I should show up. These are the gaps that we have and I have consciously and subconsciously. But I make a promise that I'm always going to live up to these standards. And yeah, it's very important. Go right ahead, Zamo. You can use it in your financial space.
Thank you so much. I will. I definitely will.
Awesome.
No,
cool.
Thank you very much, everyone. Are there any other hands? Is there any other comments, any other questions that one would like to ask? Thank you, Lesego, as well to you. Thanks to our guest Ayanda for coming and talking to us. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share all the templates really with you guys, and you guys can populate it in a place where you store all of your artifacts.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. If there isn't anything else from the attendees, I would like to extend some words of gratitude and saying thank you to you, Ayanda, for coming and joining our community. When joining the IIBA community, it's one of those things where you get to join a group of people who love business analysis, who are so passionate about business analysis, and they will share the skills and the knowledge that they have with you. So this is one of those communities, and I believe that anyone can join us. We have this quite a number of times on Thursdays. So yeah, I would like to say thank you once again, Ayanda, and thanks Z very much for the opportunity just to have to chat with everyone. Thanks a lot, everyone, guys. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thanks,
Goodbye.
Good night.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.